Welcome to the Steady On Stronger Together podcast. I am your host, Angie Bauman. I was delighted to welcome back Steady On friend Mary Rooney Armand as my guest today. Mary sat down to talk with me about her intentionality around keeping her family's Christmas traditions simple. As someone who tends to let Christmas get a little out of hand, I was encouraged by Mary's steady, focused determination to keep Jesus at the heart of her celebration. If all things Christmas leaves you feeling a little worn out, I think what she has to say will speak to your heart too. Let's listen in. Hello, Steady On friends, and welcome to this Stronger Together conversation. I'm Angie Bauman, and I'm here today with my ministry friend, Mary Rooney Armand, yes, and she has a blog at butterflyliving.org. And we were just talking before we started recording just how deep the blog posts that she writes are. I'm trying to get my sentence right. And I'm so grateful for what you're putting out into the world, Mary. Thank you so much for your just continued commitment to help us grow in the Word and in life. Today's blog post was about parenting teenagers, and it's just rich with encouragement. It really does go deep and asks us to ask some hard questions, I think, in a good way about our own commitment to the Lord. So Mary is going to talk to us today about another blog post that she wrote that I emailed you and said, hey, let's talk about this some more, about the idea of a simple Christmas. And so, Mary, before we dive into that, will you just tell us just a little bit about yourself and your family? And and so let us get to know you just a little bit. You're a return guest, but some people might be new to you.
I was here this summer.
Yes.
I love coming on Steady On. It's just a great podcast.
Thank you.
I have 4 children. And I have 2 teenagers, and I have 2 that have emerged into the young adult world, which is actually, I was thinking I should write about that too, because that's a whole other season of life. And I'm married. I've been married for 25 years to my great husband, Corey, and we live in New Orleans, and we just love it here. We love the South. And I started Butterfly Living a year ago. I'm about to celebrate 1 year.
Happy birthday anniversary. Yes. Ministry-versary, whatever that is. Yes, I know. Yeah.
I cannot even believe how wonderful this journey has been. I've had a lot of help along the way, but I've been so blessed by it. And I had no intentions of writing a blog. And I was led here. I've written and taught Bible studies for a long time, but the blog was, and the whole message of Butterfly Living came out of my identity Bible study I wrote, and how we're transformed when we have a new identity in Christ, and we're just like the butterfly. We get to fly and embrace life. And so I try to write about practical things, simple Christmas, raising teenagers, authentic living, that we all struggle with as we walk out in this newness of Christ.
Yeah. I think what you write about really hits on just some issues that we're all feeling, but maybe I think you put them into words for us in a really beautiful way. And I want you to write that one on your kids leaving. My oldest is halfway through his junior year in high school. And so, my husband and I are beginning to talk about the fact that it's not that long and Alex probably won't be with us. And I think it's so encouraging when women who are a little bit ahead of us in what, will say, hey, this was my experience and this is something that I learned, because it helps normalize, I guess, or feel like you have this empathy with someone that's like, oh, I'm not the only person that's felt this way, or, oh, this is like a normal way to feel when my oldest child leaves the house, or whatever, and that's one of the reasons I'm excited about having this conversation with you today about what you're calling a simple Christmas, because I think it's very easy for all of us to get caught up in what we think Christmas needs to look like, feel like, be like. Absolutely. And I really appreciated your encouragement around this. And so I just want to start by tell us what a simple Christmas is to you, because I know in your blog you wrote that it's not something that's like plain and boring. And so if that's not what it is, what is it to you? How do you define a simple Christmas?
Well, I am not plain and boring. I'm the opposite of that. I'm just kind of crazy, and I trip on things. So if you know me personally, I'm kind of silly, and I kind of don't get jokes, and then if the joke's told, I get the joke late. So simple is looks differently than what most people are probably thinking of. So when I grew up, we had 1 or 2 gifts under the tree. We had a plastic tree with those silver icicles hanging down.
Oh, yes.
The multicolored bulbs that were this big that we would string on the tree. We'd go to our church Christmas party and go to a potluck and eat turkey Christmas Day. And that was it. I mean, it was very simple, but I have great memories from that time in my life. And it was centered around Jesus's birthday. So if you fast forward, since I was a little girl, Christmas has just kind of gone crazy. So when my kids were young, I had to really be intentional about how Christmas can stay Christ-centered, but fun. Kids like to have fun, right? If we make it all, we got to keep the seriousness of it. So it was the silly fun, but at the same time, it's a deep meaning for the season. And it's not about just shopping and the prettiest Christmas tree and all the other things that are nice, but can kind of take over if we're not careful.
Yeah. One of a good memory that I have from when we moved around a lot when I was young, but a lot of times my father's a pastor also, and he served, these little churches. And a lot of times, I don't know if it was him or somebody else in the church, they would put together these little bags, and inside the bags would have an orange, a chocolate bar, and a peppermint stick, like a candy cane, And I just remember that as being one of my favorite things that happened when we would go to the church party, and I would come home with this little like brown lunch sack, and it had these 3 things in there. And when I first was serving the first church that I served, every year for a children's message, I would do what I called traditions bags. And I would tell the story of just like what that meant to me, this simple offering. And I would give all the kids a traditions bag with those 3 things inside it, because I don't know. I think that just popped into my mind as you were telling that, because there's something about just that simplicity, that feeling inside that was not expensive to put together. That was not, it didn't have fancy wrapping. It was in a brown lunch sack, but it meant a lot to me, and it just said Christmas. And I think maybe the church environment that it came to me from and all that just meant a lot to me. So that was popping in my head.
And I try to look at it, Angie, as stripping down. Just let's strip it down and think, do we really need to do that?
Yeah.
Will that draw our family closer together? Will that refocus us to Christ? There's a lot, not necessarily today because we're in this quarantine situation, but typical years, there's a lot to choose from.
So much.
And there's a lot to do. And there's a lot of pressure to do everything. And so it's really just stripping it down, and a lot of things in life, not just Christmas. Does my family really need to participate?
And being willing to say, no, it doesn't. Ooh, that's hard for some of us, right? To be able to say, actually, like even one of the things that you and I talked about when we were talking about scheduling this, and I really admired this and appreciated it, because what the thing you said to me, I'm trying not to make any commitments after, I can't remember what day, like the 17th or something like that. And I thought, I think that's so beautiful and kind of brave, actually, because it's like, hey, this is what I need, right, in order to do Christmas for my people the way that I want to. And that means say no to some things.
Because Angie, really, if you don't say no, and I'm big on presents. So the reason I cut it off at the 17th is I can't be present.
Right.
I have all these obligations.
That's
and
right.
Kids want us to be present.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Teenagers, younger kids, it looks differently, but I try to be present. That's the gift I can give. And so I have to say no, which you're right, is not easy all the time.
No, it's not. It's not. One of the things you wrote about in your post was just the idea of, and you mentioned this already, keeping your Christmas Christ-centered. So talk to us a little bit about what has that looked like through the years for your family to have a centeredness or a focus on Christ during the season. Because I think we all want that. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I think we all want that. And I think we all are like, yeah, we just need to keep Christ in Christmas and all these things. But what does it actually look like if that's what we really want to be about.
And we've had so many great discussions about this over the years as my kids have gotten older, but it is hard to have a gift-centered Christmas and simultaneously have a Christ-centered Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
You have to pick. Okay, now don't get me wrong, we get gifts. I'm not anti-gifts.
I'm writing that down.
They do compete.
Yeah.
And so the problem with Christmas today is it's so commercialized and it's so easy to just click on Amazon or click on that email and buy, everything your heart desires. But is it really necessary? And that, again, stripping it down. So we set a precedent very young with one of my children since they've been very young. My kids have never gotten everything their heart desires.
What?
They just haven't.
Yeah.
And just because we could do it, we chose not to. Because there is something about yearning and working towards.
Yeah.
And having a little more empathy when your kids don't get everything their heart desires.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to stop the gift-centered, mentality, I guess, in our home. And not that it's easy. I mean, everybody likes gifts. Kids love gifts. So it's not eliminating gifts. It's what is the focus. So that's what I've really worked really hard on since my kids were born, really. So we did different things. We would do like Happy Birthday Jesus cakes. We did a couple of live nativities with my friend's family. We participated, we attended. Things like that are, fun experiences. And honestly, if you ask my 23, 21, I have a 16 and 15, they don't remember what they got when they were 10. I mean, they remember some gifts, but they sure do remember that live nativity we did in Gulfport with my friend Lori's family.
Yeah.
And, dressing up and, they'll say things like, Mom, why did we do that? Like, what were we doing? They remember, so it really is better. It's better. But, part of us, we like to give our kids what they want. So you kind of got to flip a switch and kind of restrain yourself a little bit and say, they don't really need that.
I think it's funny you're talking about your kids, what they remember, because some years ago, I can't even remember, Alex, my oldest, was small. We started on Christmas Eve. We watched the old Disney movie. I think it's from the 70s called Snowball Express. And we do that every Christmas Eve. And it's funny because the kids, well, especially my younger one, acts like he hates it. Oh my gosh, we're going to watch it again. But we all gather around and watch it and we talk about it through the year, or we'll laugh about something. And I don't think they'd admit it, not yet. I think they will when they're older, but that feels like such an important Christmas thing that we do. And it's a DVD that we watch once, you know what I mean? It doesn't cost anything. We pop some popcorn or make some chips and salsa or something, and we sit around and watch this movie together that we've all seen, dozens of times. But there's something about it that really, touches my kids, I think.
Special. We did that with Elf every Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
But we just had Thanksgiving, and my kids who are now older, I said, we were going to have movie night. And they said, Mom, we know every line in that
I know.
movie.
And they'll remember. Well, and I think I thought of that when you're like, they won't, there's so many things that you will buy them through the years, right? That they won't remember that, but I think they will remember. Mom made us watch Snowball Express every year.
They will, believe me.
So talk to us a little bit about your intentionality around simple acts of kindness, what you call simple acts of kindness. Where might there be needs that maybe we've never noticed before this year, or where have you found some ways that it's been meaningful for you and your kids to offer something as part of your Christmas tradition?
Well, I was thinking about this question, and I really have to give credit. We've been going to the same church for 26 years.
Oh, that's a long time. Yeah.
A long time. It's Vineyard Church of New Orleans. And we went to visit. And the first time we visited, our pastor, Phil, talked about acts of kindness, generosity, and gratitude. And he took an offering at the end of the service after he gave, and he gave whatever they collected. It was like $15,000. They distributed it to 5 people. That one had a fire, 5 serious needs in the church. And I sat there that day, and it kind of reoriented me on what a Christian who gives, what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so my kids and our family has grown up in this church and been part of this spirit of serving and giving. My church is a big service-oriented church. We have our own food bank. They cook breakfast, once we go on mission trips.
Yeah.
So I have to give credit. I was thinking about where that came from, and it really, the seeds were planted then. So that's where my kids have been raised in that environment, and that's played a big part of it. And our message this weekend, one of the pastors spoke about hope, and he said giving and acts of kindness go up in December, but it's there all year.
Yeah.
So if we can have that spirit, I think as Christians, think how different the world would look. If we're all going out everyone has homeless in their city, most cities. People need food. There's food banks in most cities. So many things. There's foster care. It's another big program we do. All those things are so important, and it's easy to forget them. So I've tried to teach my kids, and we've done things, Operation Christmas Child. That's a great program, and I included that in the blog. We would go to the store, Walmart, Target, and just fill up that box, and my kids were learning we're blessing someone with these gifts. And so all that's intentional, and really helping your children focus outwardly instead of what am I getting. So that's kind of the background of how the acts of kindness has come about in our family.
I think it's so important. Again, this year is so different. So I welcome some advice around maybe some, for this year specifically, because it is different. We're not with people as much. Like I'm not somewhere, I haven't walked by an angel tree, because I'm not out very much. Like at our church, we would have names of people from an organization, right? Where churches in the area would, maybe people in nursing homes or something like that. We haven't been to church actually to have something like that go on. So I think this year for me, I'm glad that we're talking about this now, because I think I need to be more intentional about how to do this, because the need is still there, but I don't think it's probably like right in my face. The request for it maybe isn't not in the same way that it used to be. But even with like my children, one of the things we never passed a red bucket, with a ring, like the Salvation Army red bucket. They're always like, oh, we can put the money in the butt, and I think there's just something like creating a response, like to create a response when you see a need, I think is so important in our kids. Yeah.
The needs are actually greater right now.
Good point.
Think about the elderly. The isolation is just more than ever. So what can we do? Can we call some nursing homes and see if we can Zoom in, dress up like elves, or put Christmas hats on and sing, or play games? Anything. When my kids were little, we did this several times. We would go paint nails. We would dress up in Christmas dresses and little clothes. The boys would have nice little shirt and pants. And then we would paint nails. We would sing carols, and we would decorate Christmas cards with them.
With the residents?
With the residents.
Interesting.
So that is not available today. It will be next year. That was a hugely popular event for the residents. It was wonderful, and my kids remember that. So we did that many times.
Yeah.
So now we could do it on Zoom. We could be creative. What can we do? There are a lot of lonely people.
Yeah.
This quarantine they're predicting is going to affect a lot of people with depression, anxiety. So if you have young kids and they're so enthusiastic about doing this. My kids love doing this when they're younger. What can you do to bring them into the story? Because the need is
I love that. What can you do to bring them into the story? Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a profound question. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kids. So those of us with kids at home, we've talked about your kids and, throughout this a little bit, but how have your kids, like specifically, or other kids that you know about, like with people that are close to you that try to do this kind of thing, how do they respond when gift giving maybe is limited or is changed? What do you see with them?
Yeah, and again, with my kids, we started young.
Mm-hmm.
So they only got 3 gifts, sometimes 4 if it was a tiny item. I tried to have a fair distribution so that it was even, because kids are, I didn't want to make it a big fight about
Right.
fairness. So they grew up with that system.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're used to.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they wrote a list when they were younger. We did Santa, Dear Santa. They might have 10 things on the list. Now I ask them to write a list to me. They know that's a suggestion.
Uh-huh.
It's not a demand.
Mm-hmm.
So they will not be getting everything on the list.
Mm-hmm.
That helps, because I think if kids write a list, this is what I want, well, you might as well just go to Walmart and buy it.
Yeah.
It takes away the surprise and the gift giving. So that's how we did it. You can make adjustments. That's the great thing about kids. I adapted and adjusted so many things I did, things I was doing wrong that I thought we could do better, because they're kids and you call the shots. So if the gift giving got out of hand, well, it's a new year, hold back.
Mm-hmm.
I used to hide when the kids are babies and you have all the grandparents, I would hide a bunch of the gifts and reveal them throughout the year.
Really?
2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, they don't even, they're going to find one thing they like.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's a box,
Mm-hmm.
So I would put away
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the gifts and reveal them throughout the year when, they needed a little pick me up or,
Yep.
that's how I did it. So my kids never got used to this overwhelm of gift giving.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important. We actually, we began to like space out. We've had a couple of years where there was just too much Christmas. I say with love, right? Like it's just like I'm like, it's just stopped being fun now. Like the babies are melting down, and why are we doing this, right? Yeah, and I'm like, that doesn't feel simple. That feels stressful, and that's not. Yeah, yeah, that's no fun. So
and you can't. I mean, people have big families, and when kids are. I mean, you have a cute 4-year-old little girl or boy and everybody, of course, I understand.
Yeah.
And I wasn't one saying, don't give my kid,
right.
Give them an orange.
Right.
I mean, I didn't dictate what to give my kids, but I did dictate how they use the gifts.
Yeah.
And spreading them out.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to that, like saying no, because sometimes saying no is to commitments, but sometimes saying no, it's hard too. It's like to family members and their expectations to keep things simpler, right? Or sometimes saying no to yourself and saying, actually, this is maybe about something in me that I'm trying to do for my kids, or I'm trying to impress my kids or other people. And it's not really like, check our motivation, say no sometimes too, I think, right?
Because it feels good. I mean, we feel good when we give. But our kids need the opportunity to feel good when they give.
Yes.
And so the parents that love to give the most, sometimes the kids don't like to give at all because they're always receiving.
Right.
But we got to give our kids a chance, and that's the nursing home. Residents and operation, all those things help kids experience the joy of giving.
And again, not this year, maybe in the same way, but, a lot of towns have, community Christmas meals or Thanksgiving, this time of year. And I know, like in the town where I serve, they're still trying to make that happen, even though they can't they need help to make that happen and get those meals. They can't bring people in, but they're taking the meals out. And so there are things like that too. I think where for the kids, right? They can be put to work serving that way too, I think.
Another big thing, our church sponsors Compassion International. We're huge with that organization. And so I've been on trips with Compassion, and I see the great job they do, and the children cannot come to the center now.
Right.
They're bringing everything to the children. Well, the letter writing campaign, kids can do that. Sponsored kids, and when my kids were younger, we would write letters together. That's a great organization to get behind. And letter writing, it never stops.
Yes, and that I think that just builds an awareness. I I'll share this quick story because the first child that we sponsored with Compassion, because we're supportive of Compassion, also, we actually, my son, the boy that we sponsor in Rwanda is the same age as my older son, and that came about because we were having a discussion about time on the Wii. This was years ago, when he was playing the Wii, and I can't remember. And I made some like flippant comment, you should just be glad that you have a Wii. There are kids that don't have a Wii, and like, and Alex said to me, he's like, I don't know anybody that doesn't have a Wii. And I thought,
and
he probably didn't. And there was just this like check in my spirit that I'm like, at 5 years old, it's definitely time that we work to try to open your eyes to the like ridiculous way that you're blessed, or the things that you have. And so I searched this out. I was new to Compassion at the time and all that, but that really stemmed from that discussion, because I think I needed to be more intentional about letting my children know that lots and lots of people don't live the way you live. Right.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah. So one more question before I let you go, and that is, I noticed a comment from on this blog post. One of your readers left a comment, and he said this. He just said, "We haven't nailed this yet," in response to kind of what you were writing. And I wondered if you would just take a minute to just share some words of encouragement. Talk to the person today who says, "Oh yeah, that all sounds good, but it's hard, right? It's hard to simplify. I feel like maybe it's already too late this year. Whatever. Some of those feelings that we can feel like failures sometimes when we want to keep something Christ-centered, but we also realize that the thought clutter and the secular clutter and all that kind of stuff is very loud too. Would you just speak to that for a minute?
Yeah. And I mean, so many things in life, sometimes we feel it's gotten away from us.
Yeah.
Stop this train. And we always can. We can always modify.
Mm-hmm.
It's always available to modify whatever in life. And with our kids, like I was telling you, they're so adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
Pick one thing. That's what I would say. Pick one thing. What is one thing we could do this Christmas that's a little different and would make a big impact? What's one thing we could do this Christmas to strip down the chaos? Because a lot of people, years past in particular, Christmas became so chaotic, it was hard to enjoy anything.
Yeah.
Keeping up with all the invitations and, the kids, the more you do and the more things they're involved in, they're like, can get that, like I said, the train rolling. And like, whoa, Christmas is here. And I felt like we did nothing and we're not connected. We just ran around.
Yeah.
So pick one thing, you really feel, and I'm not saying it's always easy to do these things. But if you feel, okay, some of these things make sense for my family, pick one to strip down.
Yeah.
One thing.
Yeah.
That can make a big difference. And, everybody's kids are different ages and, which requires, my kids don't do bake happy birthday Jesus cakes anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But when they were little, that was a big,
it was important, right?
Baking the cake was fun. Decorating the cake, they mostly looked terrible with those squeezed icings all over them, and we put those candies on them, and then we have some great videos, everyone around the table singing. Well, of course they're not going to do that now, but if your child is 4 and 6, that's a great tradition.
Yeah.
They just love those type of things.
I used to, every year I would block a day and I would like bake all day. Like I'm talking like 12, 13, 14 hours sometimes, because I would make these boxes for all the teachers and all like my husband's coworkers and different things, these boxes of all these different Christmas goodies. And the last couple of years I did that, I really didn't like it. Like I'm like, I don't even think I like baking. Like, I don't know, but I'd been doing it a long time. It had grown over the years. You know what I mean? It was like expected. And so I just kept doing it. And last year I said to my husband, like maybe around this time, I said, I'm not going to bake this year. And it was like, I'd been thinking about it for weeks. I'm not kidding. Like it was this like huge thing. And I'm like, everybody's going to be disappointed and all this stuff. And my husband, just with all this grace, he was like, I think that's fine. And I'm like, really? But I just say that because sometimes the expectations that we carry or we put on ourselves for something, no, I didn't get any hate mail because nobody got a box. Right. Do you know? You know what I mean? Like, I think I felt like I had to do this, and it was something that didn't bring me joy. And I think people appreciated it, but it certainly didn't, destroy their holiday season because they didn't get one. Right. And so I just share that because I've tried over the last few years to reevaluate, why do you do the things you do? Right. And
yes,
are
that's
they
good.
Yeah.
I mean, self-awareness sometimes is the first step.
Yeah.
And I think that ties into perfection.
Yeah. That's a killer for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our house doesn't need to look perfect.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We did this great thing with our kids, collecting ornaments, and they make all these ornaments in school when they're little, and their pictures are on the ornaments. And so it was a big deal to open our boxes.
Mm-hmm.
We would all decorate the tree and put the ornaments on. I mean, we have great memories. Well, now they don't want to do that. Nobody wants to help me put up the tree. So I've been last year and this year, the first 2 years. So I put just cute ornaments up.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe when my kids are older and they have kids, we're going to go back to this.
They'll want those ornaments. Yeah.
I believe that they are. That was a great tradition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My trees were not perfect.
Nope.
For years.
Yeah.
But they were so sentimental.
Yeah.
And the tradition was so special to us.
We had so many years where the ornaments were like on the bottom third of the tree primarily, right? Amen. And then the top was kind of, I'm like, that's where my kids can reach. So that's where they are.
All these are the ways that if we really want our kids to remember, we are celebrating the birth of Jesus.
Yeah.
Savior of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jesus changed my life. I just was not the same person.
No.
He has transformed me. He brings me peace. He's my comforter. This is a great time of year. I love Christmas, but we need time to rest in that.
Mm-hmm.
We need time to absorb that. We need time for our family to absorb that together.
Yeah.
One thing we still do, even though my kids we read the Christmas story, Christmas Eve. We've done that. They used to read it, or, they would know parts by memory from church. But now, usually my husband will read it. And that's still because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just keeping those memories in front of us, memories and reminders, I guess. I mean, just like, yes, there is all of this. There's all the things, right, that we're doing, that we want to do. A lot of it we want to do. Some of it, like the baking, and actually we don't want to do. And so we can let it go. But with all of that, can we also keep those reminders of the important things and keep turning our eyes back to really the thing that does bring us peace in the midst of all of this?
That's right. Mm-hmm. The reason for the season.
That's right. That's right. Hey, before I let you go, I like to end on this question when I remember, and that is, tell me, what are you right now? What's connecting you, keeping you fed, connecting you to God? What are you reading? A book, a study, a song that you're listening to? Anything that you're using right now that you're like, ooh, this is really good for me right now?
Oh gosh, I have so many. But I tell you, I'm always taking in information.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are too. But as a writer, that's where I get inspiration. That's where I get confirmation. But I am studying Genesis. I'm in a Bible study called Explorers, and we do it scripture by scripture by scripture. I've been in it 11 years. And the richness that I've read Genesis every time I break down a book of the Bible, it's amazing to me. So I'm halfway through that. It goes through May. My small group, I'm in 2 small groups that I lead. We just finished Comparison Girl.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah.
And we decided we're going to do kind of go back 2021. There's a lot of expectation, and we're going to, Rick Warren just came out with a revised purpose-driven life.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we're kind of just going to go back, evaluate our purpose, become aware of maybe where God's calling us. And we decided that's what we're going to do in January.
I think that's great. Yeah.
And I've read that book many, many times, but just something about it, it it's so rich.
It's not about you. Isn't that the way the book starts, right? It's not about, it's not about me, or it's not, yeah.
Timeless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
My book is probably 25 to 30 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be working on starting in January.
I love that. Well, thank you. I'll link those things in the show notes. I'm always just interested in other people, what they're studying and learning. And it just it's encouraging, I think, to all of us to remember that that we need to keep those kind of things in our lives. Books by our nightstands, podcasts in our ears, whatever, just things that can continually point us back to Jesus.
Yeah, and my fun thing I'm doing right now is I watch BritBox, and there is a mystery show called Father Brown that's been around.
Oh yeah.
And so when I want to escape,
yes,
I love the British, and their storylines are a little different.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to me. And so I have my iPad, and when I put those earplugs on to watch an episode, my kids, of course, all have something to say to me.
Right. Oh, yes. That's when they just desperately need you. I'm watching my show.
But they're old enough that if they're doing homework in the evenings, that's I've been watching Father Brown on BritBox.
Father Brown. I love it.
Yes. It's a mystery show, and he's a pastor, and he's not supposed to be solving the crimes, but he gets in the middle of the crime.
He wears a lot of hats then.
Yes, yes.
I love that. Well, this, as I knew it would be, has been a delight talking to you. And I'm so grateful for your time, for your words, for your willingness to share your own journey with this. It's been it's been very encouraging to me, and I know it'll be encouraging to others. So we will sign off, and thank you again so much, Mary.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. I'm delighted. Yeah. Until next time, peace. Mary said that there's competition between a gift-centered Christmas and a Christ-centered Christmas. Talking with her has helped me take a closer look at what is driving my Christmas celebration decisions. Like many things in our spiritual walk, our understanding of how best to celebrate Christmas will undoubtedly change as we draw closer to God. Whatever Christmas preparation has been like for you this year, I pray that it has at some point involved a deep connection with Jesus Christ. If not, it's not too late. For when we seek Him, we will find Him. Thank you so much for listening. I pray that wherever your day takes you, you are walking in the confident knowledge that you are a beloved, cherished child of God. Peace.